What is going on, everybody? Tim from Tirfon Orbital. So this is going to serve as a demo slash walkthrough video for a commission that I recently completed. So this is for a speeder bike, speeder, Koran horn themed hilt. This hilt started off as a speeder from the Saber Merchant. I believe that's what Jeremy from the Saber Merchant called this run. It was just simply the speeder, I think. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name, but yeah, this I had seen this hilt obviously in passing. People have shared it in the Sons of Karelia Facebook group. So I've seen this build before. In fact, I did a custom one that Nevin from Space Junk Sabers had made some body modifications to. So I've seen it in passing. Love the look of the hilt. I just never was able to get my hands on one. So it was really neat to see this hilt in person and actually get to handle it and then completely change the look of it. So the hilt was sent to me brand new, just bare aluminum. And the client did want had some specific requests that they wanted done to the hilt. So we did change the look of it just a little bit, I think. So we're going to talk about the chassis first. This is a custom removable, so I'll go over the chassis and then we will go over the hilt because I did do some body mods to this hilt. And then we will do a demo like we usually do, right? So let's come down into Fusion. This is the chassis that I did for this particular hilt. Nice, simple, stacked setup. There's plenty of room on the inside of this hilt. I think I had 28 millimeters or just a hair over 28 millimeters in this hilt. So I was able to stack the board and the battery, right? So around this side, we've got our battery tray. We do have room for a 28 millimeter speaker down here. This is a 28 millimeter bass speaker from Smuggler's Outpost. And I did my, greebly work along both sides. I did some custom piping work on this one. I don't often do like custom like this. I've got a bunch of just like saved step files that are tubes, but this one I just kind of did some custom tubing to make it look like it's a part of a speeder bike, right? Some more greeblies around this side, and that's it. Proffieboard sits here. It does slide up underneath this lip. There is easy access to the USB and SD card should the client need to do that. I do always recommend getting a 90-degree connector for USB. That way you're not pulling the board up and out all of the time, right? Just some other emboss work along the top here. We do have a kill switch that sits in this area at the top of the chassis. And then up here, I've got my it's a 7-rail PCB. And this was from Smuggler's Outpost as well. Okay, so nice and easy. That's the chassis. Let's come up top and take a look at this hilt. All right, so here it is. A lot different than what it looks like new. So the client did want this blacked out and looking a lot darker than just bare aluminum, okay? So what I did with this particular build is something similar that I did with my most recent Koran that I did. I did a pass of aluminum black on all of the aluminum parts. Removed this claw, removed the pommel. So before... Typically with me, all right, and this is probably not completely necessary, but I actually like to pre-treat the aluminum before I aluminum black it. So with this hilt, for example, I took all of the parts and did a pass with Easy Off, actually, and that's just to kind of get off a lot of the residual oils. It also helps to knock back some of that aluminum and make it a little bit more porous, so it takes the aluminum black a little bit better, in my opinion. I mean, that's just been my experience, right? So I pre-treated this bare aluminum first, then I did a pass of aluminum black on all of the parts. After that, and letting the aluminum black set, I actually think I did 1 or 2 passes of aluminum black because I really, really wanted to get that black look, right? After that, and letting the aluminum black layer sit for a little bit, I did a pass of a clear coat to seal the aluminum black. And then before that clear coat finished curing, started knocking back some of these edges, right? So just to make it look like it's been used and worn, I started knocking back some of these raised beveled edges along the emitter, along the pommel here. So just to make it look like it's not completely, perfectly black, because the client didn't want it to look like it's been used. So that's what we did with that. And then I did when I was done knocking back these edges, I did another pass with a matte clear coat, right? So let's start at the pommel. So this is an unscrewable pommel. I'll take this off now because we're going to need to put the chassis in. Pommel does unscrew, okay? I do have a spacer in here, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So along the bottom, I just did some brass accents. This is a brass bar that I weathered and with brass black, and then there are 2 black hex grub screws that are threaded into the body of the hilt. The grip has been blackened or grayed, right? Really, really nice grip too. I love knurled grips. So around here, some people have noticed and were able to source where these came from. These are actually pedals from Ray's hilt. I recently got the steel version of these from KR Sabers and put them on my personal. So I have a bunch of these extra just kind of laying around. So threw that on there, and the client was really happy with how it looked. Initially, I only had 2 on each side, and the client was like, yeah, put 4 of them on there. I really like that, right? So just a unique look. We've got another brass bar here. I've popped 2 holes in the bottom of this claw and affixed this brass bar that's been weathered as well. This switch is a 2-way toggle. So I have wired it up so that this is the main. So either way, either direction you press this will act as the main. It kind of simulates turning it on, like pushing it up. Pushing it up will turn the blade on. Pushing it down will turn the blade off. But essentially, it's just a 2-way switch, and both are main. We do have, and speaking of aux switches, this is a switch assembly from a Graphite handle. I've been meaning to try to utilize one of these switches on a hilt for a long time. And I thought this was the perfect opportunity to do that. So I removed this from a Graphite flash gun. Actually, I have one. Let me show you. So this is an older one. It's a little bit more beat up, but this is a Graphite handle. And actually, this is an old Graflex. It's not even a Graphite, but it's the same switch assembly. I removed that entire switch assembly, okay? I had to take this red button out and make some modifications to this, but underneath it is just a regular 6x6 red tactile button, and it just lives underneath there, right? This dial I removed and put a red LED in. This is a static red LED. It is wired up to one of the LED pads so we can get some accent animations on this. One of them's pulsing, the other's like a heartbeat. Around back, this is aluminum heatsink. I've used these before, just a nice random greebly. With these, I actually have to make some edits and body modifications to these parts as well, because it's essentially just a square rectangle box. And in order to contour that around the emitter, I have to actually bevel it so it sits flush, right? And last but not least, of course, we've got this flat piece of flex conduit. On the inside of this is an orange Edison filament. Now, this is a flexible Edison filament. I have used the rigid ones before. This is my first time using one of these flexible ones, and I'm probably going to go with these from now on. They are much more robust. I have found that the static ones are very, very fragile, very brittle. This was a lot easier to work with, right? So this is just wired up, resisted and wired up to the blade power. So whenever the blade is on, this will animate. And last but not least, I also did a custom blade plug for this order. This blade plug, this brass piece on the inside of this blade plug is actually the plunger that comes with this hilt. Around back, typically, well, I've seen some folks use this hole with that brass plunger as an aux switch, but I put it into a blade plug, right? So that's it. That's the outside of the hilt. Let's talk about the chassis. So here is the chassis. I kept this chassis blacked out. I wanted to keep it, you know, aesthetically in line with the hilt. So it is just blacked out. I actually did something I don't often talk about with my resin prints. I always, so when a print finishes and it's done curing out of my wash and cure station, I do a very, very light wet sand with a high grit carbon sandpaper, let it dry, and then I do a pass with Tamiya spray paint. Now, I've been using matte black. I've found that there's this new color called, it's like a rubber. It's like a Tamiya rubber matte black, and it looks really good, right? So I always do that. That's how I treat all of my chassis usually. Even before I do like rub and buff, I feel like having that base coat primer of black really allows the rub and buff to take a lot better to the hilt. So anyhow, left this guy black. Here's the board, kill switch is up top. Let's put a battery in it. So you want to take the flat part of your battery, which is the negative side, spring side negative, lay it down in your chassis. So this was already on. If you don't hear an audible cue, just hit that kill switch. All right. And then you just want to slide it into your hilt until it stops. So I did put a ring on the bottom of this pommel. Otherwise, this pommel would be pressing into this speaker and you'd get distortion. So there is a ring in here that helps push the chassis up into that upper PCB, right? So you just want to screw your pommel in until it stops. There's that red LED. And let's turn it on here. So there's that Edison filament. Let's come down to the bottom. So that red LED blinks on this particular font. So there's a bunch of different fonts in here. And there's that Edison filament. Really cool look on that guy. So let's put a blade in it. So there is, as I said, there is a blade plug in here already. I will ship with that. There are two set screws here. This bottom set screw is the set screw that holds the PCB, the blade emitter PCB in place. So don't unscrew that. The top set screw is your blade retention. So you want to loosen that. Take your blade plug out. And then you want to rest your blade right down into that emitter and tighten your set screw. Now I've noticed that you really want to make sure this is tight because there's some play in this emitter that I've noticed. So you do want to tighten this guy down and make sure it's nice and secure, right? And then you're ready to go. So that toggle switch, you can simulate turning off by pressing down. It'll turn off. It'll turn on or off either way. But I like thinking that turns it on and off. Right? Let's see what else we've got on here. Just a couple of Speeder fonts on here. Aux works. So this is your aux button up top. Let's see what else we got.
I'm Cal Kestis.
Yeah, really nice feeling hilt too, and that 28mm sounds great in this thing. I'm really happy with how this came out. It was really nice to have a client say, look, I trust you. I trust your creative process. Just kind of take the wheel. Obviously, you know, this particular client had some requests and we tried to stay in line with that. But I always appreciate it when somebody, you know, trusts the sabersmith or the installer to kind of just do their thing. And I really love the result. So this looks great. I really like it. And I hope the client does too. So That's all I got, everybody. If anyone has questions about this particular install or the chassis, please don't be a stranger. To the client, thank you very, very much for trusting me with your speeder. Congratulations, you are now the happy owner of a customized speeder grip lightsaber. And that's all I got, everybody. So thank you for watching. Thank you for the support. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Thanks for watching.